Hello, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I want to share with you a phrase from the Bible. It's one of my favorites. It's from John 17, the Gospel of John, chapter 17, verse 3. It says, "When Jesus had spoken these words, he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, 'Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you.'" My favorite words are, he lifted up his eyes to heaven. So today what I would like to do is to briefly draw those words to your attention. He lifted up his eyes to heaven. There's something about lifting up your eyes. There's a beautiful verse in the Psalms that's something like, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. Jesus lifted up his eyes. That's not the only place it says that. And I think there's something about lifting up one's eyes. Now I want to combine that with a couple of other things that I've seen, just to give you some hints about this thing. Just to give you some hints about this. See if it might be of help to you. I was reading a Western novel. In fact, I've seen it more than once in Western novels. I love Western novels, the old-fashioned kind, where you have a good guy who's independent, and he has to stand up against wrong, and he triumphs. I love the Westerns because they talk about the beautiful land, the forests and desert, the streams and rivers. Maybe it's because I come from Utah. Maybe there's a bit of the West in me. And anyway, it was one of three authors, maybe all three. It was either Louis L'Amour. Many of you have heard of Louis L'Amour. He wrote a lot of Western, very popular writer. Luke Short, who also wrote a lot of Western novels. Or Ernest Haycox. Either one of those three. Not sure which it was. I think it probably more than one of them. But it was something like this. The last one I remember is the main character, the cowboy, was riding on his horse at night through a forest. As he rode through the forest, he looked up at the sky. He saw the stars and the moon. And he looked up to see what time it was, to see what the weather was, or just to see the beautiful starry sky, which is beautiful at night. But he said to himself, he said, city people rarely look up. And I thought about it, and I thought, that's true. People are always looking down. Always looking down, looking straight ahead or looking down, looking at their iPhone. You see that a lot now. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But now do you see what I mean to lift up your eyes? Jesus lifted up his eyes to heaven. There's something about lifting your eyes up, to look upward, to see the blue sky, to see the beautiful puffy clouds, or at night to see the stars. It's said that Ignatius of Loyola would often sit on the porch at night. Sit on the balcony. Was it the porch or the balcony? Sit on the balcony. Sit on the balcony at night. Probably the second level of the residence hall where he was staying. And he looked up at the stars. And he was filled with awe and wonder and reverence at the handiwork of God. They reminded him of God and God's greatness. Lifted up his eyes. Now the other thing, you often see pictures of saints. For example, You often see it of Teresa of Avila, a true mystic, a true mystic. And you see her, you see a painting of her with her eyes uplifted, her eyes lifted up. And you see it also of Saint John of the Cross, another mystic. You see him, painting of him with his eyes lifted up. So there's something about that. And then I'll give you one more thing. See, I put these little pieces together. Then I heard a very spiritual man, the most spiritual man that I know, by far. Okay, also mentioned lifting up one's eyes. One more thing that I noted. This was years ago. Online, I found reference to a Hawaiian meditation. I think ancient Huna meditation or something like that. But the writer of this post, who also wrote a book, apparently was a specialist in this ancient Hawaiian meditation. He said that one of the aspects of it is lifting up one's eyes, and he gave the example. He said, and he instructed the reader to pick a spot on the wall, up on the wall. And then he said, look up, lift up your eyes, and look at that spot on the wall. Gaze at it. Okay? Just gaze at that spot. And he said, when you do that, when you gaze at that spot, you will notice that your peripheral vision opens up. You're able to see much more to the sides when you do that. So I did that, and he's right. When you pick a spot on the wall above your eye level and you look up at that spot, then sure enough, I can see much better in my peripheral vision. So, do you think so? Perhaps it's an analogy that you get the big picture. You get a broader perspective when you look up. So now let's put that all together. That's what we want. We want to be able to see the big picture. It's very important. Have you heard, for example, the advice, and it's good advice, that if somebody's trying to draw you into an argument, and they're pulling you into the argument, then all of a sudden you take a mental step back, and you get the big picture. Or you're talking with someone, and there's some issue, and you're not quite sure what to say or what to do, if anything. And then all of a sudden you take a mental step back, you get the big picture. And somehow that getting the big picture imparts understanding to what you do. See? Getting the big picture. So, when we meditate with the kind of meditation that I talk about, where you close your eyes and look at the inside of your eyelids, the point is to also get the big picture, to become objective, to get out of the subjective. We're very subjective. When you are focused on something, when you look at something with desire, there's a piece of pie or something, or you really want that pie, or some jewelry, or some shoes, or something that you want, a drink. Oh, you look at it and it becomes the focus of your existence at that moment. Or when you resent someone. See, when you resent someone, like let's say somebody is making a funny noise. You're sitting there trying to read or something. Somebody's making a funny noise. If you resent that person, then you become intensely conscious of the noise that they're making, and you stare at them, and you lose the big picture. You become totally subjective. Or when you're lost in thought, worrying about the future, reliving the past, you lose the big picture. Okay? There's something about looking up. See? Something about lifting your eyes and seeing blue sky and the puffy clouds. There's something about that lifts you out of your subjective, selfish. Okay? Sure, we have to do things. Of course, you have to earn a living and attend to matters, of course. But you have to admit that there's also a lot of selfishness involved in our wanting things and hating things and resenting things, see, and worrying about things. There certainly isn't faith when you're worried. When you're sitting there worried, lost in worry, you can't have faith. See, maybe this will be of help to you. Maybe I want to always give you something that will be of help to you. So there's all different ways I can go with this. I could go on and follow different threads and come up with a lot of things. But I'll just say one thing. When you're lost, when anyone is lost in worry, okay, they are incapable of faith. Have you ever noticed that? When you're worried, you are incapable of faith. See, they are mutually exclusive. Okay, it's like if I'm looking at this over here, then I can't look at the other thing. I just can't. See, I mean, it's a silly example, but it's not a very good example. But faith and worry are mutually exclusive. You understand that, don't you? But you have to. But do you see that? Do you grasp just how true it is? You would like to have faith, confidence, self-confidence. You'd like to know what's right and be sure. See, and people try to confuse you and try to intimidate you with their cleverness, and you're not sure. You'd like to be sure, so you can't be intimidated, and you'd like to know what the right thing to do is with your kids, for example, or with your partner. You really and truly would like to do the right thing, and you somehow know that faith is important because self-doubt, worry, anxiety, fear, those don't help. Okay? But when you get lost in your worry, you cannot have faith. So the answer is quite obvious, isn't it? The answer is to get out of worry. That's the answer. And when you get out of worry, let's say you pull back and you're no longer in worry. Well, then maybe you don't have a lot of faith, but at least you're capable of having some faith. Faith enough not to worry. Faith enough to be patient. Faith enough to not come unglued. But when you get lost down in that machinery of your thoughts and emotions, that squirrel cage of worry, doubts, fears, worries, it pulls you down like a downdraft. Okay? So, when you lift up your eyes and look at the stars, or lift up your eyes and look at the clouds and the blue sky, there's something about that. It reminds you that God exists. It reminds you that this too shall pass. It reminds you that there are important things in life, and so on. You see? Somehow you're reminded. And you're in a different space, a better place, a better space and a better place. Okay? Well, so how do you get out of worries? So lifting up your eyes is one way. But an even better way, or a more powerful way, is with the meditation that I teach, because it basically shows you in a very simple way how to find that place that when Jesus lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, Father. See, he was in a different special place, wasn't he? Special space, let's put it that way. And that's where you want to be, where you're capable of having faith and love and understanding, instead of impatience and worries and doubts and fears. But when you're in space, when you're lost down in your thinking and imagination, See? Then you have worries, doubts, and fears, and no faith. So you want faith. So the meditation shows you how to stand back from worry. See? Right now, what happens is anything at all upsets you. Anything at all gets to you. See? Usually it's negative stuff, but it could be something that you make too important during the day, and then at night, and then you lay down in bed at night, it keeps going through your mind over and over. All the day's activities, things you became emotional over. They get inside somehow. But what I was going to say is that the problem is that different things trigger you to escape into daydreams, into thoughts. You're driving down the road and you're so lost in your daydreams, thinking about what you're going to do or what you did or whatever, that you drive right past the freeway exit you should have taken. So that's where you don't want to be. So, but then when you fall into that, then if you're worrying at the same time, then you see it's like a double whammy. So the secret is to be able to have it, to have the big picture, so that when the worries come, you see them. There they are, but you don't fall into them. When the doubts come, you see the doubts, but you don't give in to them. See, you see them, but you don't give in to them. You observe them, let them pass. It's like watching a river flow by. See that thought stream that you fall into? It's like jumping into a river, floating downstream toward the rapids. Don't want to do that. You want to be sitting on the bank, peacefully sitting on the bank, and you watch the river flow by. See, watch the thoughts flow by. So, yeah, some thoughts can be troublesome. They can be troublesome and they can be persistent. They're trying to get your attention. They're like a temptation. See, they're trying to get your temptation. I heard a cute story. J. Vernon McGee told it. He has a series of Bible studies on Christian radio. But anyway, he said there was a mom, she baked some cookies. And she put them in the cookie jar and put them in the pantry. Well, that evening, she was upstairs in her bedroom, and all of a sudden she heard noise downstairs, like it was coming from the pantry. And she said and her little boy was there. She said to her little boy, she said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm in the pantry." She said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm fighting temptation." Okay. So he was fighting temptation. But you see, if you want to fight temptation, the way to fight it is not to get lost in your thoughts. Because down there, you don't have power over your thoughts when you're lost in them. You have to be sitting on the bank watching the river flow by. The time to fight the current of the river, well, once you're fallen in, see, then it's tough. You don't want to fall in. You want to stay on the bank. Okay? So if you use the meditation properly, it helps you to remember. See, the other thing is you go the whole day and then you think, oh, I never once took a moment to look up at the beautiful blue sky and the puffy clouds. Never did. Never took a moment to lift up my eyes and thank God for blessings that He's given me. See, I forgot. See, we forget. We forget to remember. But wouldn't it be nice to be reminded? Well, that's what will happen when you do the meditation. Every morning, first thing, you do it for 5 minutes or so. And then during the day, you'll be reminded. When you fall into excessive thought, something will remind you, something will awaken you to that fact, and then you're no longer lost in the thoughts. Now you're observing the thought. You're getting ready someone's trying to pull you into an argument or trying to draw you into something, some gossip or some intrigue or some foolishness or some trivia. And you're just about ready to put one toe in the water. You put a toe in the water, but then all of a sudden something reminds you and you pull back. So you're safe. See? So that's what the meditation helps you to do. Then during the day you'll remember from time to time. You'll lift up your eyes.